Okay, so back in October, I made a video, a full Leaks and Rumors episode on the Samsung Galaxy S9, covering everything you need to know in terms of the design, the specs, the cameras, all the new features, the battery size, the release date, the price, and so much more. So in case you missed that, definitely check it out. Essentially, this is part 2 to that video. So Samsung Galaxy S9, Leaks and Rumors, part 2. So since I made that first video, a lot more details have emerged in terms of the S9. More specifically, the specs have been leaked along with the actual benchmarks for the S9 and also the design of the S9. We got quite a few leaks in terms of design as well. So there you go, the latest leaks or rumors in terms of the Samsung Galaxy S9. So grab some popcorn or some snacks and enjoy. Now, the Samsung Galaxy S9 is mostly going to be a small improvement over the S8 and the S8 Plus. So it's going to be sort of like an S model to the S8. So this means that we would get better specs, we would also get better cameras, including, by the way, that dual camera module that we got with the Note 8. And that's mostly it. Now, this is not necessarily a bad thing, to be honest. So design-wise, the S8 looked amazing. I still prefer it over the Note 8, by the way, which is a bit more squared off, and it also comes with a bit thicker bezels than the S8 Plus. And the S8 is, in my opinion, the best designed phone of 2017, even better looking than the iPhone X, since you essentially have no notch, and the design is overall much more uniform, and then you also have those curved edges which make it look even more amazing when you take a look at it from the sides. And design-wise, the S9 is going to be almost identical to the S8, so the same 5.8 inches and 6.2 inches sizes, and the same 18.5 by 9 aspect ratio display. Now, speaking of the design, BJR has actually posted a few renderings from GhostTech, and they are actually a case manufacturer, and they were one of the first ones to post renderings for their cases for the Samsung Galaxy S8 and the iPhone 8 and even the iPhone X. And essentially they got almost all of those designs right. And now here's the one that they have for the Samsung Galaxy S9. So from the front, it looks almost identical to the S8. Maybe the corners are a bit more squared off, if you take a look on the top to match the Note 8's design. And we also cannot really see the bottom bezel, which is quite interesting. It might be covered by the case, but then both the top and the bottom, if you take a look at the case, both the top part and the bottom part have exactly the same dimensions. So if the bottom part of the bezel is hidden, then this would make the top one twice as big, which I don't really think is the case. So probably the exact same bezel size on the bottom. And now if you take a look at the back of the S8, we can see the dual camera module that's coming from the Note 8, along with the LED flash. We can also see the heart rate and the oxygen level meter. And then finally, the fingerprint reader right in the middle of the phone. And then interesting enough, we've also had the second render posted on Weibo, which seems very similar to the one from GhostTech. But since this one isn't really a case, you get a much better look at the actual design of the phone. And yes, in this one, it does seem that the bottom bezel has been completely removed on the S9, and we only have the top one, which again seems a bit more similar to the Note 8 one rather than the Samsung Galaxy S8 one. So what happened to the fingerprint reader that was supposed to be built into the display assembly? Is it dead? Well, unfortunately, it does seem so. So apparently Samsung is going to focus more on improving their facial recognition tech on the S9, because at the moment on the S8, this one actually has two ways of being unlocked with your face. So the first one is by using the iris scanner, which is very secure, but it's also a bit slow. And then the second one is by using face unlock, which just as on the OnePlus 5T, it just uses the front-facing camera to read your face. And it's really, really quick, but it can actually be tricked with a photo, so security-wise, it's not that great. I mean, Samsung even acknowledges this on their website, that face unlock isn't as secure as a pin or a pattern. And then Business Korea reports that Samsung would be improving their facial face unlock functionality on the S9 by quite a bit. So they won't be adding a full 3D sensing camera like on the iPhone X just yet, but they would be improving it by adding maybe a second camera, a low resolution front-facing camera, in order to measure depth. If you have two cameras, you can actually measure depth. That way it would know when you're actually showing it a picture or a video, so essentially to the image. And it won't unlock the phone if it sees it to the image. If it sees a 3D image, essentially your face, it would unlock the phone. Yes, that would mean that you could essentially trick it with a mask. Maybe that would work. So it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be as advanced as Apple's facial recognition system on the iPhone X, but it's definitely going to be an improvement coming from the S8 or even something like the OnePlus 5T. Now, going back to the design, interesting enough, we do have a headphone jack, or at least a cutout on the case. Now, we've had quite a few reports suggesting that Samsung would be removing the headphone jack from the S9. Now, I would say that they would probably keep it, to be honest, just to be ahead of Apple and Google, both of which have no headphone jacks on their latest smartphones. So there you go, this would be the key selling point of the S9. We have a headphone jack, whereas our competitors don't. Now, in terms of the actual specs, we would still get two models for the S9. So a US variant, which would come with a Snapdragon 845 processor, and then the international model, which would come with Samsung's new Exynos 9810 processor. Now, in terms of the Snapdragon 845, we don't really know that much about this one yet, as it's only expected to be announced in December. All we know is that it's going to be based on a 10nm process, so still 10 nanometers, just like the 835 was, and that it's still going to be an octa-core processor. But this time it might feature 2 high-performance cores and 4 low-performance cores instead of 4 and 4. So essentially similar to what Apple did with the Apple 11 processor in order to reduce power consumption. So power consumption would be lower in this case on the Exynos 845 versus the 835, but the overall performance on those 2 high-performance cores would be lower than the 4 high-performance cores that we got before. Now, in terms of the Exynos 9810, this one's a bit more interesting because not only has it been announced officially by Samsung, but we've also had some leaked benchmarks of the Exynos 9810. So yeah, this is quite interesting. So in terms of the official specs, the Exynos 9810 is going to be based on 10nm process, but essentially the second generation 10nm processes. And the GPU is going to be improved by quite a fair amount. So we're going to get a Mali G72 GPU in the S9. Now, we didn't get exact performance numbers, unfortunately, but the Exynos 9810 does support the new Cat 18 LTE modem, which essentially means that the speeds will be up to 1.2 gigabits per second or 150 megabytes per second LTE, which is really, really fast. Essentially, when you're measuring internet speed, you're actually measuring it in gigabits, not gigabytes. So yeah, essentially 1.2 gigabits per second is what you're going to get in something like speedtest.net. Now, these are some crazy speeds considering that this is LTE, not Wi-Fi. That's just crazy, but at the moment there's no network that actually supports these speeds. So, you have a future-proof device that supports those speeds, so maybe like 4 years from now, the Samsung Galaxy S9 will be supporting these on some networks. But now here's something even more interesting. So 2 days ago, the Geekbench score of the Exynos 9810 has been leaked. And this is it. So 2680 for the single core score and 7787 for the multi-core score. Now, this is quite a big improvement if you compare this to the Exynos 8895 or the Snapdragon 835, both of which got about 2000 for the single core score and about 6400 to 6500 for the multi-core score. But unfortunately, even the Exynos 9810 is simply murdered by Apple's A11 processor. So this one scores almost 4300 for the single core and over 10,500 for the multi-core. Now, by the way, this is actually higher than a 13-inch 2017 MacBook Pro, and it's also comparable to Intel's 7920 HQ processor, which, by the way, is Intel's Kaby Lake mobile flagship. So essentially, this is the most powerful 2017 laptop processor that you can get. And this is Apple's A11 processor inside the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 10. So the performance in this processor is crazy, and it seems that the Exynos 9810 is, gonna be about half the performance when it comes to the single core score, at least, and almost the same when it comes to the multi-core. So, it's good, but it's not the best one, unfortunately. Now, in case you're wondering, no, you won't be needing that much performance. So for everyday use, yes, the Snapdragon 845 is going to be more than enough. But if you want to do some more advanced stuff like video editing, if you want to do video editing on your phone or export high-resolution photos and do, a bunch more stuff that's a bit more complex and a bit more processor demanding, then the Apple 11 processor inside the iPhone 10 is going to show its performance, whereas the Snapdragon 845 will be significantly slower in those cases. But for everyday use, everyday browsing, and using your everyday apps, it's going to be just fine. So you don't need to worry about that. And finally, I have some updates in terms of the price. So Kim Dong-won, not King Jong-un, from KB Securities reports that Samsung will be increasing the price, by the way, of the S9 because of a new 3-layer laminated image sensor that could cost double or even triple the price of the current image sensor on the S8. Now, I'll be covering all the camera changes in a more detailed separate video if you want to see that. So definitely subscribe if you want to see that as soon as it comes out for more Leaks and Rumors episodes. And also don't forget your notifications by simply tapping on that bell icon. And in that case, you'll be notified as soon as a brand new cool tech video comes out. And I also did a really interesting video on the Samsung Galaxy X. So not the S9, the Samsung Galaxy X, which is Samsung's new foldable phone, which will be releasing in 2018. So definitely give that video a watch. It's really, really interesting. And this is about pretty much it. So let me know in the comments what you guys think about the specs of the S9 so far. We're not 100% sure about the amount of RAM, by the way. I haven't talked about the RAM yet. So we are expecting about 6 gigabytes of RAM, so same amount of RAM as on the Note 8. Unfortunately, we're not expecting to see 8 gigs of RAM like on the OnePlus 5T. That would be great, especially considering that TouchWiz or Grace UX is using a lot of memory with a lot of stuff running in the background, especially Bixby. So 8 hopefully, but it's probably gonna be 6. But yeah, this has been it. So thank you for watching this video. Feel free to give it a like if you enjoyed it, to let me know. I'm Daniel, and see you guys in my next one. Son of Tech, signing out. Cheers.